Hey everyone, welcome back to the Listen Up Girl podcast. As this podcast has grown over the last year or so, I've decided to add a new theme to one episode a week. I'm going to take one news story that is really trending and break it down. This is a podcast where we don't just react to the headlines, we slow them down and we give them a little context, and we talk honestly about why they have landed the way they do. Today's story isn't just controversial, it's emotional, it's personal, and for a lot of LGBTQ plus listeners, it's painful. We're talking about Nicki Minaj. For more than a decade, Nicki wasn't just a superstar, she was a cultural symbol. Loud, theatrical, fearless, and unapologetic. She was embraced deeply by the LGBTQ plus fans, especially gay men, drag performers, and trans women, who saw themselves reflected in her excess, her bravery, and her refusal to make herself smaller for anyone. But over the past several weeks, that relationship has changed. Nicki has appeared in MAGA-aligned political spaces, she has shared stages with figures associated with anti-trans rhetoric, and she has now publicly challenged or clarified that alignment. For some fans, this represents independence and free thought. For others, it feels like betrayal. And for many LGBTQ plus people, it feels like grief. This episode is not about cancel culture, it's not about demanding perfection, it's not about telling anyone how to vote. This episode is about history, power, trust, and consequences. We're going to cover it all calmly, clearly, and fully so you don't have to piece it together from social media fragments. So let's get into it. So over the past several weeks, Nicki Minaj has made a series of public appearances that many fans interpret as a clear political pivot, not just towards conservatism, but toward the MAGA-aligned spaces specifically. The most high-profile moment came when Nicki appeared at the AmericaFest, a conservative political conference hosted by Turning Point USA. Turning Point USA is closely aligned with Donald Trump and has a documented history of supporting politicians and policies that oppose LGBTQ plus protections, particularly those affecting trans people, including access to health care, education, and public expression. At this event, Nicki shared the stage with Erica Kirk, a conservative figure whose public rhetoric around trans identity has been widely criticized by LGBTQ plus advocacy groups as harmful and dehumanizing. What made this moment explode wasn't just Nicki's presence, it was her silence. Nicki did not challenge the rhetoric. She did not distance herself from the ideology. She did not clarify her position afterwards. And in 2025, silence is not neutral. In the days following the appearance, Nicki reportedly lost hundreds of thousands of followers across platforms like Instagram and X. Long-running fan pages shut down. LGBTQ plus fans posted farewell messages, not angry ones, but sad ones. At the same time, a different response surged. Supporters praised Nicki for thinking independently, for refusing to be controlled by the left, and for asserting autonomy in a culture that often expects political obedience from celebrities, especially Black women. Two reactions, same moment, completely different interpretations. So why is this so hard? Well, to understand why the backlash feels so intense, you have to understand the relationship Nicki Minaj had with the LGBTQ plus culture, because it wasn't accidental. It was foundational. Nicki's music dominated gay clubs long before it dominated mainstream radio. Queer DJs broke her records. Drag performers built entire careers impersonating her. Her alter ego's exaggerated femininity, campiness, and theatrics resonated deeply with queer audiences who understood performance just not as art, but as survival. For many LGBTQ plus fans, Nicki wasn't just entertainment, she was affirmation. And that history was cemented when Nicki appeared as a guest judge on RuPaul's Drag Race. Drag Race isn't just a TV show, it's one of the most important cultural platforms for queer and trans visibility in the modern era. Nicki didn't just show up awkwardly. Nicki didn't mock the queens, she didn't distance herself, she praised them. She understood the humor, and she leaned into the spectacle. For many queer and trans fans, the moment mattered deeply. It felt like recognition from someone who understood how intertwined queer culture and pop performance truly are. So when the LGBTQ fans say, we helped build her, that isn't entitlement, it's history. Which is why this moment doesn't feel like disagreement. It feels like a loss. The defense and why are some fans supporting her? Let's talk about that defense, because it exists, and ignoring it would be dishonest. Nicki Minaj has always framed herself as someone who resists control, creativity, personally and politically. She has consistently rejected the idea that celebrities owe political loyalty to any party or ideology. Supporters argue that political disagreement does not equal hatred. Celebrities should not be treated as political property. Supporting Trump does not automatically mean someone is anti-LGBTQ+. They also point out to Nicki's long history, queer fans, queer artists, and queer spaces as evidence that she hasn't turned her back on the community. From this perspective, Nicki isn't abandoning LGBTQ+ people. She's just rejecting the ideology under pressure. For some fans, especially those disillusioned with mainstream politics, that defiance feels empowering. The agreement deserves to be acknowledged, but acknowledgement does not erase the impact. So why LGBTQ fans say this is not just politics? Here's where the conversation fundamentally shifts. For LGBTQ+ people, especially trans people, politics is not abstract. It determines who can access healthcare, who can exist safely in public, who can learn about themselves in school, who survives legislation. The movements Nicki is now aligning with support policies that criminalize gender-affirming care, restrict drag and gender expression, and frame trans identity as dangerous or fraudulent. So when Nicki stands alongside those movements without resistance, LGBTQ+ fans do not hear neutrality. They hear endorsement. This isn't about demanding ideology purity, it's about safety. Queer fans are not saying, agree with us on everything. They're saying, do not legitimize people who want us erased. And when someone you trusted does exactly that, the grief is real. So there's the pardon question, facts versus speculation. Now we need to address the question circulating heavily online. Is Nicki Minaj aligning with Trump because she's seeking a pardon for her husband or even her father? Let's separate fact from speculation. Nicki's husband, Kenneth Petty, is a registered sex offender convicted of attempted rape in 1995. In recent years, he has faced federal charges related to failing to properly register after moving states. Nicki has publicly defended him and framed legal accountability as persecution, a stance that has already strained her relationship with many fans, particularly survivors of sexual violence. Because Donald Trump has a documented history of issuing controversial pardons, some critics speculate that Nicki's political alignment may be strategic. However, this is critical. There is no evidence that a pardon has been requested, a pardon has been offered, or that any legal process is underway. For Nicki's father, Robert, he passed away in 2021. There is no legal or factual basis for a pardon in this case. At this time, the pardon narrative remains speculation, not reporting. But speculation grows where trust collapses, and trust right now is fractured. So let's take a look at the bigger picture, power and consequence. So this story faces a larger question. Can celebrities engage in political power without accountability? In early eras, entertainers could plausibly claim neutrality. That era is over. When your platform reaches millions, your presence confers legitimacy. Your silence has impact. Your choices ripple outward. Nicki Minaj has the right to her beliefs, but LGBTQ+ fans also have the right to say, this no longer feels safe, this no longer aligns with my values, this no longer feels like allyship. This is not cancel culture, this is consent. So where does this leave us? Nicki Minaj may continue down this path. Some fans will stay, many won't. What is clear? The era of consequence-free celebrity politics is over, especially when those politics intersect with movements that threaten real lives. The story isn't just about Nicki Minaj. It's about trust. It's about power. And what happens when allyship becomes conditional. I'm Zach Randles-Friedman. This has been Listen Up, Girl. Stay informed, stay critical, and take care of each other. If you think this episode would resonate with somebody that you know, please share it. Also, please leave a comment and a like on this episode. And thanks so much for listening. I'll be back next week with another breakdown of one of our news stories that's resonating across the LGBTQ plus community. Thanks for listening.